Thank you, Chairman Langford, Ranking Member Spear, and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today on the loss of taxpayer dollars in the form of the wind production tax credit. To start with, go back to the creation. The PTC began as an obscure part of the Energy Policy Act of 1992, a tiny subsidy to an infant industry that might need support to grow. Not until the 1990s was it even mentioned in DOE's annual energy outlook, where it was expected to produce very little by 2020. It surprised us. It grew to a highly competitive international industry. Wind turbines accounted for the largest block of new power generation in 2012. Throughout this, the PTC sunsetted, was renewed, and so on. Today, wind lobbyists are again asking for full continuation, permanent subsidy. Looked at objectively, wind power is a poor choice for continued subsidy through the PTC. It is in no way an infant industry. Generator manufacturers compete around the world and fund their own research. Even if advances are on the horizon, a subsidy like the PTC should not be offered because it pays turbine owners to operate rather than to invent. Even without the PTC, wind is exceptional because it still does have a long-term market in the form of state renewable portfolio standard requirements, which are expected to lead to approximately a large amount over the next 20 years under these programs. Wind is hardly without its drawbacks. We hear that a wind turbine could light 20,000 homes a year. Because wind blows intermittently, most of their residents will be living in the dark most of the time. An electric grid only works if supply equals demand every second, which requires the nation's power plants to compensate for wind's randomness and act as reserves. Over 85% of these plants obtain their energy from coal, natural gas, and nuclear power. Adding one of those plants to the system increases reliability because it's controllable. Adding a wind generation does the opposite because it requires additional reserves to compensate for wind's unpredictability. For system planning purposes, the ERCOT, the Texas grid operator, counts a megawatt of wind generation capacity as equal to 8.7% of a reliable fossil fuel megawatt. Wind entails other costs. Over the past 5 years, approximately $22 billion have been spent on transmission dedicated to reaching wind facilities which would not otherwise have to have been built. The fact that wind turbines do not burn fuel and emit no pollutants or carbon does not make them green. The reasoning conveniently neglects the reality that a substantial volume of fossil fuel generation must operate and pollute solely as backup for the intermittent wind power that most utilities have no choice but to accept. Going back a step, wind turbines are made of materials whose production entails emissions, and the material requirements per megawatt of wind capacity are substantially greater than for gas or coal capacity. Finally, some advocates see wind as worthy of public support because of its alleged abilities to create jobs. There's nothing discernibly unique about wind as an industry. Construction jobs are short-lived and mostly in conventional building trades. Most construction employment is small, and post-construction employment is small in volume and skewed towards low skills. Claims that the wind production tax credit increases employment are without foundation. There are computer programs that purport to show job creation as wind workers' incomes are respent. When households and businesses pay premium prices for wind power, those funds are unavailable for them to spend elsewhere. Every visible new job in the wind industry comes with a less visible lost job elsewhere in the economy. It concerns me that the National Renewable Energy Laboratory now offers computer models for use by wind advocates that calculate created jobs and never consider the lost jobs due to overpriced power. Wind power has grown from a novelty boutique energy source into a mainstream industry that employs numerous high-paid lobbyists at the federal and state level. The PTC has remained and even expanded despite the lack of any rationale for keeping it. At the wind industry's present size, other seeming advantages have also vanished to be replaced by higher costs, generally funded by consumers rather than wind investors. Wind's environmental implications are not all benign. Advocates of the PTC cannot substantiate claims of job creation. The PTC's rationale has vanished, its usefulness to taxpayers has expired, and so should the PTC. Thank you.